We begin this hour in Washington, where Donald Trump says he'll be there to greet 3 U.S. citizens just freed by North Korea when they arrive home very early tomorrow. The men are aboard a plane with the U.S. Secretary of State right now. The U.S. president spoke about the release last hour during a cabinet meeting in Washington.
Right now, flying back are 3 what they were calling hostages. We call them fine people, 3 really fine people. Seemed to be healthy, because nobody thought this was going to happen. And if it did, it would be years or decades, frankly. Nobody thought this was going to happen. And I appreciate Kim Jong-un doing this and allowing them to go.
The CBC's Ellen Morrow is tracking developments from Washington, and she joins me now. So, Ellen, how did the release of these men come about?
Well, a really dramatic 24 hours, Andrew. You think back to yesterday during the Iran deal announcement, President Trump said that Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, was en route to North Korea. That was news yesterday, and he met with Kim Jong-un and secured the release of these 3 American prisoners who'd been held in North Korea, all of them on espionage charges. The men and Secretary Pompeo are now en route back to the United States. We know they'll arrive around 2 a.m. tomorrow morning at Andrews Air Force Base, not far from Washington, D.C., where they'll be met by President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence. We have had reaction from one of the families of one of these men, a man named Tony Kim. His family released a statement earlier today saying, "We are very grateful for the release of our husband and father, Tony Kim, and the other 2 American detainees. We want to thank all of those who have worked toward and contributed to his return home." So again, a really dramatic 24 hours. And we know Mike Pompeo did meet with Kim Jong-un and talked about the release of these men. It's the 2nd time he's met with Kim Jong-un, meeting with him the first time over the Easter weekend, Andrew. And again, this will be very happy news. We'll see a celebration tomorrow morning at Andrews Air Force Base.
And so how does this set the stage for Trump's meeting with North Korea's leader?
Well, this was a really important step, the release of these 3 prisoners. They've been in the news. Whether or not they would be released before the talks was a question. And this move is being welcomed by the White House today as a gesture of goodwill by the North Koreans. And President Trump spoke about that earlier. Here's a bit of what he had to say.
A lot of things can happen. A lot of good things can happen. A lot of bad things can happen. I believe that we have... Both sides want to negotiate a deal. I think it's going to be a very successful deal. I think we have a really good shot at making it successful, but lots of things can happen.
So again, Andrew, the release of these 3 men is seen as an important step in sort of paving the way for those talks that President Trump was just talking about to happen, that historic meeting between himself and Kim Jong-un. We don't really have a whole lot of details about that meeting. President Trump said the date and the location will be announced at some point in the coming days. There was speculation that the meeting might happen in the DMZ, the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. President Trump said that is not the case. It will not happen there. There's some speculation that perhaps it could take place in Singapore, but until it's announced officially, we just don't know. But what we do know is just the contrast from, just a few months ago and really over the past year, when we had such an intense war of words between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, more weapons testing by the North Koreans. To think of all of that, and now to think of where we are today, that is an important step in getting to these talks.
Ellen, thank you. That is the CBC's Ellen Morrow, live in Washington. So here's what we know about the 3 men that are now on their way home to the U.S. Kim Dong-chul had been held the longest. He was sentenced in April 2016 to 10 years in prison with hard labor after being convicted of espionage. He used to live in Virginia and reportedly ran a trade and hotel service company in a special economic zone near North Korea's border with Russia. Kim Hak-song was detained about a year ago for alleged anti-state activities. He never faced trial. He worked at an experimental farm run by Pyongyang University. And Tony Kim was detained in April 2017 at the Pyongyang airport. He taught a university course on accounting. Kim was accused of unspecified criminal acts intended to overthrow the government.